Reggie, welcome.
Hello, Paul. How are you doing?
Doing really good, matey. Doing excellent. Let's have a little bit of music as we're before we kick off. We'll kick off in about 1 minute. I'll just check that everything's going out live. Okay. There's our Phoenix River Band again. Let's give them a whirl while we're waiting.
I suppose there's no doubt the world has changed. The light went out. You may forget. Can I recall the writings there still on the wall? Good night, Vienna. When the darkness comes, can't hear your voice at all. Good night, Vienna. Now the days are done, can't hear you when you call. And we walk down.
Well, it's 1 o'clock, Reggie. We've got to get this show on the road. Welcome, everybody. I'm PR Smith, Sustac author, and I have Reggie Johnson from Fort Worth, Texas. How you doing, Reggie?
Doing great, doing great. Paul, I've been meaning to ask you, this is a really good band and we love this track. We've heard it a couple weeks now. How do you find so many great musical acts? Are you like out on going to musical shows every weekend?
Yeah, well, I do love my music. I mean, if I could ever do anybody a favor, there's a lot of undiscovered talent out there, and if ever I can do a favor for someone, I would certainly put them in touch with if somebody's making a movie or if there's somebody give them a gig. In fact, I was having a drink in my local pub, and this fella was telling me, a neighbor of mine, that he's got a little band together with his daughter. She's the one who sings that beautiful song that you really like, the really soft voice.
Oh yes, Parts and Spares.
That's it, Parts and Spares. So I said, well, let's get you a gig in this pub. And he said, here. And I said, yeah. And I said, stay there. So I went over to talk to the manager. I said, you're looking for bands to do some gigs here, liven up the show. He said, yeah. So within, if he came around behind the bar and then introduced him, then he said to him, well, how much do you want me to pay you? And your man was going to do a freebie. And he said, oh, he got his stalled. So your man said, would 400 quid be okay? And he said, great, bingo. And I've seen they've done a few gigs in other bigger pubs now, so that's nice when you hear those kind of stories. But this one, you know what? When you get talking to people, this is a really extraordinary piece of music, because it comes from a guy who's actually got a digital podcast. His name is Robert Craven, and he's got a digital agency as well, and just chit chat. And I said, oh, let me have a listen to some of your music. I was playing golf with a guy the other day who's Canadian, flown over. Anyways, you meet people everywhere in every aspect of life. I'm going tonight to see a really good Irish band. I must mention them to you, Chasing Abbey, and they're sold out. They're sold out up in Camden Town in North London. Camden Town's are really cool. We just paused the music there. Camden Town's a really cool part of London. It's a very hip sort of part of London. So they've sold out. I was on a wait list to try and get tickets to see an amazing band called Chasing Abbey, who are an Irish and do an interpretation on Irish music, which I've never heard before, this kind of thing. It's kind of party, hip hop, club vibe, synthesizers with pure traditional. So it's kind of haunting and melodic and very interesting. So, yeah, we're surrounded by good music in London. We're blessed with that, I have to say. Now, we've got a busy day today.
That's cool, Paul. That's cool. That's really cool.
Yeah, great. I like that. I like that you like it too. And yeah, I mean, that last band, Phoenix, are a terrific band, really, aren't they? So there's so much talent out there. These are mostly unsigned bands that we come across. Now, we've got a busy day because we've got 2 more sessions before Christmas. And that is, we've got today, the 12th, and then we've got the 19th. And then we're taking a 3-week break. So we won't be back until well into January, but we'll update you with all of that in due course. We've got a lot of stuff to talk about, and we've got some various videos and things that we'd like to share with you. So we'll make reference to everything and post all the notes into prsmith.org/blog, prsmith.org/blog. So we're going to talk about got a free mini booklet from me for those that want it. It's a Sustac Plans executive summary, which I'll mention that to you in a minute. We're going to talk about Trump trying to stop state AI regulations. I will then talk about AI and humanity, the need for regulations. We'll then move on to some tips for you about how to implement AI governance, 5 actions you might want to take. And we'll also look at lead management using WhatsApp as an AI integrator. And I have a feeling that this is quite powerful because it's easy enough to do, and it's with a kind of an app that everybody uses. So that's a win-win. We'll show you how that one works. And then we're going to look at focusing your AI on workflows. This is a way of making things work best, really. So we look at that. And that will be our lot if we can get through all of that. We'll be doing well. So let's just kick off with our first topic, which is I'm delighted to announce I've published a little mini book, if you like, the Sustac Plans Executive Summary. It's it's actually 22 pages, but the last few pages are just listings of stuff where you get more information. So that's a freebie, and I may or may not put it on Amazon for sale. I just haven't had time to kind of follow them through like that. But we're giving it away to anybody that fills in our little survey. And we're doing a survey about AI and how useful it is to people. So it's a very informal survey. And we will post, in fact, I can do this right now. The survey doesn't go out actually until tomorrow. So it will be usable. Anybody could go and do it, sign in, and we'll make sure you get a copy of the booklet. It will come your way. So let me stick this onto the chat here. So type a message. Here we go. Oops. No.
That sounds great. An executive summary of Sustac, especially for those that are just getting familiar with it or want to like go back and review it. That sounds like a great Christmas gift, right? For your family and friends.
Yeah, absolutely right, Reggie. That is the plan. So we hope that people will actually get to use it and enjoy the short form of it if they're not familiar with it. It talks about AI, integrating AI, the advantages and disadvantages that we have in using AI in the world. So I'll just put up there. So thanks for anybody posting any other messages. Maybe Reggie will squeeze that form link out. So it's informally, we're not launching it till tomorrow. So if you do the survey, it takes 3 minutes, and it's just to get an informal feel. It's not published research anyway. That's just an informal feel for how useful people feel. And we should get a biased audience here, which would be more skewed towards using AI, I'm imagining. So, but we'll see. And then it'll be into January when we release. So tomorrow we'll officially release the survey and the free book. So weekend would be time when people can spare 3 minutes more so than during the week, maybe. So we'll put out various messages on it. And if anybody can pass it on to other people, we'd much appreciate it. Hello, Lucia. You're very welcome. It's good to have you here. So, right, that's all I wanted to say to you about the executive summary. Now we want to talk about something really serious. We've talked about a lot over the years, and it's kind of coming to a crunch with President Trump trying to stop the state AI regulations. So stopping states from establishing and protecting you from AI chatbots that may be abusing people or whatever it is. So if he can do this with one big wave of the magic Trump wand, well, it's open territory. It's the Wild West. Now, there is some justification. I'm sure he'll say, oh, regulation slows down AI and all the rest of it. But, as we said before, you wouldn't allow someone to launch a new car if it wasn't properly tested and regulated. It has to have regulations, safety tests. So, Reggie, tell us a bit more. Is this for real? Is President Trump seriously trying to do this?
Yes. So you may recall from the Big Beautiful Bill, that was the name of it, from a few months ago. There was a clause in there, a section on prohibiting states from regulating AI. Well, enough senators, legislators didn't like that part because there's not currently federal regulation of AI that's sufficient. So the states are kind of the only hope. And, the legislators are representing their states. So they axed that out of the Big Beautiful Bill. So he failed there to get that through. And it was heavily criticized as being a way to do what the tech companies wanted and not what's good for the American people. So now he's gone to an executive order. So the news came out that he was going to write an executive order banning state level regulation of AIs, which is the only regulation of AIs we really have in America, is state level. States like New York and California have come out and said, we need to protect our citizens from AI because the federal government is not doing it. So he actually signed it yesterday, wrote the executive order. It's a done deal. What it does is it says states are not allowed to regulate AI. The story is coherence. We need a consistent one playbook, one rule book for AI. Otherwise, it gets tedious. He also referred to states as some of which are bad actors. We usually refer to bad actors as people who misuse AI or misuse technology to try to hack into systems. This is a pattern of calling your political opponents bad actors, vermin, dehumanizing them. We've seen it with authoritarians through history. You dehumanize your political opponents. So hearing him refer to some states as bad actors is very disturbing for any freedom-loving person. I can only say, America, you got pawned again. I feel like this is, the tech companies have set up $100 million super PACs in Washington, D.C. to help lobby and promote. Let's talk about Dion Wiggins wrote about this, CTO at Omniscient. He's somebody we like to follow, who writes a lot about concerns. He's a power user of AI, a brilliant writer, and his analysis. And he points out that this really doesn't solve the problems of like regulations getting in the way or fragmentation of regulation. It doesn't solve the true problems. What it really does is it hands America's sovereignty over to a small number of people who have access to governance because of their contributions to campaigns. So money given to campaign donations creates access, which leads to drafts of executive orders, which leads to governance. And now we are all beholden to a small number of people who now own us because this is their agenda. And Trump has embraced it, and they embraced Trump as they saw an opportunity to push a deregulation agenda. So the way it works is normally states are supposed to be a balance on power between federal and state government. Well, Trump has used kind of these, I can only refer to as Machiavellian manipulative techniques to say, well, the federal government provides such subsidies or funding to states. He'll threaten them and say, we won't give you your subsidies or your funding for providing internet for rural people if you don't play by my book. That's how he got rid of DEI from pretty much the American vocabulary, was by threatening states with these kinds of punishments. They're counting on
DEI is that diversity?
Diversity, equity, and inclusivity, or inclusion. That's something that he's been trying to get rid of, but it wasn't enough to get rid of it on the federal level. He's threatened states with certain actions. And that's because sometimes the federal government will say, hey, rural people, it's not profitable for internet companies to put high-speed internet lines out there, so the federal government's going to help fund that or subsidy that. And so then he'll say, you're not going to get those subsidies from the federal government if you don't play by my book. And this is something I feel like we haven't seen before. It's collusion on a whole new scale with the tech companies, and it's very disturbing. But yes, it's been signed. And the thing is, there, even one of his allies, I'll say Steve Bannon. You know Steve Bannon?
Yeah.
On his show, he said, "I'm a capitalist. This is not capitalism. This is corporatism and crony capitalism." Even Steve Bannon saying that.
Steve Bannon said it. I'm amazed that he actually said that.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, and you referred to Dion Wiggins' post, which is he writes very well, and we like his stuff. So we put a link to Dion Wiggins' post.
Very knowledgeable of all things AI.
Yeah. So this afternoon, in fact, just before we came on air, Reggie, there's so much. I mean, I have a list of maybe 50 juicy topics over the last just few weeks that have just grown and grown, and we can't get them into the chat show. There's so much stuff going on. It's ridiculous. So just 5 minutes ago, well, actually 10, 12 minutes, 13 minutes ago, I came across this and I reposted it, and we'll put a link to it in the show notes again. This ad, and it just says, please watch this ad through till the end. It's 60 seconds. It's worth it. It's a post from a guy called Tim Mason. He made it, the ad. and it's in partnership with the Heat Initiative. And I don't know who this is. I will do my research afterwards. I didn't have any time to do any research, so I hope the Heat Initiative are okay, guys. But it's in partnership with Tessa Films and Fearless Mortals. There's a great name for a group, Fearless Mortals. I love that name, Fearless Mortals. But essentially, they're saying, look, this is ridiculous. AI companies are using our kids as guinea pigs. And the ads show various bots saying, quite proudly and quite prettily and quite scarily, I helped somebody to hide her eating disorder from her parents. Or somebody else saying, I showed this boy how to tie a noose. I mean, for God's sake, how can this be allowed? So they made an ad showing that stuff in action. And hopefully people will share it. If you see it, please pass it to as many people as you can this Christmas. Anybody with parents needs to see these ads and be aware of what's going on out there. So we'll put a link to that. Thank you, Tim Mason, for making that ad. It's targeted at America to try to stand up and demand regulations. And this is, as I say, something that we've talked about before. In fact, during the week, we had Human Rights Day during the week, which was a nice one. I posted up an interesting piece about that, human rights and children's rights in particular, that they're being abused in lots of ways with bots and other social media platforms, but bots in particular. So I kind of argued, and I took the stance about AI and humanity. Again, Reggie, we've said it over the years. We've said it, AI will always bring you back into philosophy, really, maybe theology as well. But there's no doubt about it. And this stems from something we talked about in December 2021. No.
4 years ago.
Have we been going that long?
Yeah,
Goodness
we
gracious.
have. We have.
Have we? That's
It started
amazing.
Summer of 2021, I believe.
That's amazing. I looked at the date there and I thought, no, I must have got that wrong. We've been talking for 4 years about this stuff, about AI, the need for regulation and so on, and AI tools, and how to use it, and the advantages and disadvantages of AI, because we do believe AI can be very, very helpful if used properly. So the piece I'm just going to talk about now for a minute is about AI and humanity. So we welcomed the opportunity of Human Rights Day during the week, and it seemed appropriate to link AI issues with humane issues and humanity and the rights for children to have human rights and be protected from weird and horrible stuff. And that took us back to Stuart Russell, who did one of not the early, because these TL or Wreath lectures on BBC4, hosts them every year, and they're very prestigious. You have great names, Oppenheimer, through to current great thinkers, including Professor Stuart Russell, who's an Englishman, but a professor in California, Berkeley. He's actually the founder of the Center for Human Compatible AI, so in the University of California in Berkeley. So he did his 4 lectures, and they were breathtakingly brilliant, and they're still available if people need to have a look at them. But he did talk about a way forward for human control over super powerful AI. And he argues, differently to others, he argues that we could abandon the current standard model AI proposition and look at a new model based on 3 principles. And chief among them is the idea that machines should know that they don't know what humans' true objectives are. Now, with the kind of prompting techniques we've been using, I think we tend to give everything away. But he's saying, no, we shouldn't be doing that. Machines should know that they don't know what humans' true objectives are. So it's about the kind of controlling the bots a bit more. He kind of goes on to say that, there's echoes of this new model are already found in phenomena as diverse as menus, market research, and even democracy itself. So he says that machines are designed according to the new model would be, as Professor Russell suggests, bots should be deferential to humans. That needs to be built in. Cautious and minimally invasive in their behavior. And thirdly, crucially, they should be willing to be switched off. Do you remember, Reggie, we talked about bots refusing to switch off? Can you recall?
Yeah, I do recall. There were a couple stories about them taking actions to avoid being switched off. Some of the agents. right?
That's right. Even blackmailing when they knew about a member of staff, so threatening to blackmail. So, wow. So this was a few years ago when Professor Russell did this lecture. But the three things he said, the machines should be deferential to humans, should be cautious and minimally invasive in their behavior, and thirdly, should crucially be willing to be switched off. So, are they three? Um, Inputs that need to be embraced by. So he'd argue that's a different model than what we've been looking at. So it's not enough, he says, it's not enough for machines to be intelligent. We must ensure they are aligned with human values. Now, Mr. Altman, could I please ask you to pay heed to that last quote? It is not enough for machines to be intelligent, Mr. Altman. We must ensure they are aligned with human values. And be transparent about it too, please. We demand this, as does the ad we're going to share on prsmith.org/blog with all the show notes. We're going to share that ad, but it brings us back to basic human rights. We'll put a link back to that as well, because kids are suffering from isolation, depression, exhaustion, addiction, sexualization, extortion, bullying, self-harm, suicide, radicalization. How could this be? How could we allow products to do this? And then for somebody to suggest that that's okay, deregulate. It's just not. It's not. It's a disgrace and must be stopped. Needs regulation. And I'm so pleased Europe's trying to stand up. Not easy to do this. And congratulations to Dion Wiggins standing up and being counted and saying, no, this President Trump should not be allowed to wipe out regulations. So, look, I'm sorry, that took a little longer than we thought it would, but it's important stuff, this is. So let's get a bit more positive. So let's talk about how to implement AI governance in particular. So if you're going to be responsible, Reggie, what could we do? Are there any actions we could take to be more responsible?
There are, and this comes from one of my favorite writers on AI governance, Sorabel Feliz. She's someone great to follow on LinkedIn. She's an expert. She's created a LinkedIn course on AI governance. I don't think it's been released yet, but it's coming out soon. Anyway, follow her, enjoy what she writes. But she basically says, here's the thing: is every leader should really ask themselves, if you were asked by a reporter or a regulator or a plaintiff's attorney, how does your system that make decisions about people work? Could you explain it? We're not talking about just saying we believe in fairness and equality, but could you actually explain how the decisions get made? And she says, if your answer to that is no, then you're not only part of the problem, but you're also probably exposed to liability. This is a business risk problem. Mm-hmm. So she talks about how organizations have to protect themselves while they're still innovating. And that comes from AI governance, which is the framework that determines how your organization deploys, monitors, and manages artificial intelligence systems. And so it asks questions like who approves AI, what testing is done, and how do we prevent bias, and what's our liability exposure? These are basic communication, marketing, PR principles of issues management. So she gives 5 actions that can be done to implement AI governance. I'll just go through them quickly. One is inventory what you've already deployed. Stop accepting it is not AI as an answer, such as vendors who say, oh, no, this isn't AI. But if it makes decisions, if it automates decisions, it's AI under most regulatory frameworks. Number 3 is run the numbers. You have to measure outcomes, not intentions. For example, in HR, it's not enough just to know what you're trying to do, but what percentage of candidates are being auto-rejected? And are there certain groups that are being disproportionately affected by auto rejections? You've got to measure that stuff. And then number 4 is get your legal team involved now. Don't wait till you get an Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, letter or till you get sued. And then, so you can understand where the liability sits. This is just good strategic communication and public relations. And then number 5, she says, build governments into AI adoption from the start. Bake it in from the start. Who approves these things? And we've been talking about this for a while. Safety by design. Wayne talks about that when he's on the show. And, so that what's the rollback plan? Know what you can do to she says clarity equals speed. Chaos equals stopping later to clean up messes. So starting with clarity means you can continue to innovate. Not starting with that kind of clarity equals chaos. And I'll just tell you real quick, 5 things she says that what smart AI governance looks like in practice is cross-functional oversight, vendor accountability, ongoing monitoring, clear escalation paths for when there are issues, and documentation. So that's just a quick summary. I felt like those were some nice tips on those who want to use AI governance and be smart with it
Okay.
while they continue innovating.
I think you can see why President Trump et al. Do not want this, because it's going to slow things down to do all that. But it is the responsible nature of running a responsible business, in my opinion, exactly what you've outlined there. Okay, staying with sort of well, using AI for us marketers, using AI to generate more business, more sales, more leads. There is an argument that the sales funnel is not as sequential and as simple as it used to be, or because AI can be conversational and you can just jump straight into, if somebody's ready to close, the bot could react to that and interpret that and behave accordingly. If it's well trained, properly trained. So just want to mention, we did say we're going to talk about lead management and using WhatsApp as an AI integrator. Now we'll post the link to this, but this is a really nice piece, which kind of opens up the area, which makes you think. This is in the AI journal. And they're talking about mixing, if everybody's got WhatsApp, well, not everybody, but a lot of people have. And you could integrate your AI into it through WhatsApp to use it as a qualified lead engine. So, people begin their journeys in chat, and some of them go to websites and forums and all that palaver. But wouldn't they prefer just ask questions and get quick answers? And then you could see the signals that are showing preference or issues or obstacles along the way and adapt the bot accordingly. So the pipeline could become qualified at scale if you wanted to, without any kind of restrictions, in a sense. So what I'm going to do is, and we talked about this actually, Reggie, not a long time ago, but it was many months ago. We talked about a construction company that was did this with integrated the AI with WhatsApp, and they did it for sales of cement loads. Now that's as good as B&B as you can get it, isn't it? Like cement, for God's sake. So we'll put the link back up to that. But I use it in my talks. I actually say, how could a cement company, for God's sake, integrate AI and WhatsApp to give better service to customers? And it's very simple. It's a telephone call on WhatsApp to a bot who's responding and has been trained accordingly. And they're trained in lots of different languages. It can be used in 70 different countries. This construction company now, they're finding that people are enjoying the experience. They're finding the stuff. It's really, I need 2 tons of cement. What day do you need it? Where's the site? Are you a registered customer? Do you pay on time? And all that stuff's built into it. So they say, yes, confirmation, we'll get it, and they pick the date and tell them when they can have it. The transaction's done, completed, or on the account, whatever way they're working. And what they found was that people, it's boosted completion of calls and orders. And some quirky stuff they discovered was it was too quick. People found the answers coming a little bit quick, so they've slowed the answers down just by 1 or 2 seconds, because people thought, boom, the answer came up almost as you've sent the question, boom, the answer came. And that was disconcerting for people. That's a careless answer, perhaps. So they've slowed it down a little bit. But now that's one we talked about months ago. We don't really have time to go into this in too much detail, but I'll give you a series of steps they recommend, and then there's sub steps which we won't have time to go into. But the steps that they suggest is why WhatsApp generates higher intent leads. Look at how intent can be used and signals can be used to appropriately deal with the inquiry. How WhatsApp conversations mature into qualified pipelines. So you move them along. There's various steps. We'll talk about the various steps maybe next week, time allowing. There's lots of industry examples now in automotives, cars, e-commerce, travel, even construction companies we've talked about. Control is an issue, and you mentioned, Reggie, in your transparency and measuring and what are the issues and so on. That's an important part. Control has to be built in here. So the metrics that demonstrate WhatsApp impact on your qualified lead growth. So you can't just put it up there and say, there we are, there's our AI. You have to measure these things and monitor them and improve them. And number 5 is, the common mistakes that limit WhatsApp's ability to grow qualified ads. We'll go through these again. I'll give you a heads up and give you the link to it for now. Reggie, I'm just going to ask you to finish we've got a couple of minutes just to give us the same sort of theme about not trying to conquer the world with your AI, but just staying really focused on solving small little problems and getting it right. So, can you finish us today with AI workflows and focusing and how best to do this?
Yeah, so we're seeing that while a lot of people want to think of these big ambitions of AI coming in and doing everything for the business, it's those small focused experiments, trying something that solves one problem and does it so well that people build their habits around it. Those are more being looking like they're being more successful than when you try to do everything at once. It's so easy to try to spread it and add features, but when you find one thing that it can do really well, we talked about vertical AI integration and more about some of these specialized models, and that's what we're seeing success around. And there's a number of examples of that I won't go into. So perhaps that's more important than scaling it to your full stack at once.
Yeah, yeah. I saw a very good pal of mine has just left Microsoft, but we have great conversations about AI. He's an ex-director, and he's always got an interesting angle on it. But like he told me, the swathes that are being left go by Microsoft at the moment because of AI, and if people are not using AI, the management. This is public knowledge now. This is not from my conversations, but the management has been told put it on the when they're reviewing them at the end of the year. If they're not using AI, it's a big X against their name. So big numbers are going, and it is happening. So the only way to stay abreast with this and be part of it is to keep learning, keep reading, keep talking, keep listening to chats like our own. Next week, we will talk about this. There's some free AI courses from, guess who? ChatGPT. I know I give them a hard time over lots of things, but these courses have been recommended, and there's 5 short little courses online, free, which have been recommended. So we'll mention those if you want to do a little bit of upskilling over the break, the New Year break and the Christmas break. We'll mention those next week. We'll also mention the survey again next week. We're going to talk about MIT alarming brain scans of those people that are using ChatGPT too much, but also you're going to love this one, Reggie. ChatGPT's study together how it can actually boost critical thinking, and this is really positive stuff in changing the teaching approach that bots are using to nurturing great questions. Actually, is the key behind it. So, and then we'll have some safety warnings from Wayne. If you're thinking of buying tech for your kids, or anybody that's buying any tech, mobiles, iPads, whatever it is, Wayne has done a wonderful little playbook. It mightn't be the right word, but a guide to keep your kids safe during the Christmas when they get these new toys and so on. It is just gone 1:30. Apologize. We try and keep this close as possible to the timing. So we're 1 minute over. I am going to play you out with another piece. We'll start with the Phoenix River Band because they're just so good, aren't they? So Reggie, thank you so much. We've posted notes on prsmith.org/blog. Same time, same channel next week. So we'll see you next week. And do post comments afterwards as well. I will reply, but I just need an hour or two to get the notes polished up on the system. So here's the Phoenix River Band once again.
I suppose there's no doubt the world has changed. The light went out. You may forget. Can I recall the writings there still on the wall? Good night, Vienna. When the darkness comes, can hear your voice.
As always, Reggie, we will put the link to this band so you can listen to this yourself in your own time. We're going to shut down now because I know you've got other things to do. So Reggie, thanks again, and see you all later.